So thank you everybody for joining. Really excited to have you all here today. We are announcing a brand new product that our team has been hard at work on over the last few months called AI Workbench. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Before we get into the fun stuff, just a quick disclaimer. What you're about to see today is not currently available or out live in the market. So don't make any purchasing decisions based off of what's on the slides. It's coming soon. We're going to kick off a pilot in the early part of the spring, so more on that to come, but just a quick disclaimer. But more importantly, thank you. We know TDX is super busy. It's been a lot of different content from a lot of different angles. Thank you for taking 20 minutes out of your day to come spend with us and learn more about what we're up to. My name is Avi Shah. I am a director of product on our Agentforce platform and the lead PM for Workbench. And I have the honor today of being joined by two of my lead engineers, Roshan and Marzi, who are sitting up front. Put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into what you're about to see. So just some quick framing. We, over the last couple of years, have all kind of been along this AI wave, right? We've seen how powerful it can be. And there's a lot of opportunity to drive ROI and productivity for your employees and for your business. But the reality is, I'm sure a lot of you guys have figured out on your own AI journeys, is that it takes some investment. It takes some configuring. It takes some practice to actually get a lot of these tools up and running into a state where you feel comfortable deploying them, putting them in the hands of your employees, and doing so in a way that is actually useful to all of them, right? We talk about, enterprise tools versus publicly available consumer tools. So you have the ChatGPTs of the world, which are really fast and flexible. They take little to no learning curve. People can jump into them really quickly. But the reality is they're not safe, especially with your enterprise data, right? There's no protections against hallucinations. There's no way for ChatGPT to know about the data that you guys have in your own systems unless your employees are putting that into ChatGPT, which then the models can train on. So there's kind of this yin and yang balance there that we have to be careful of. On the other hand, the enterprise tools are a lot safer, they're a lot more predictable, but they require a lot of upfront heavy lifting, right? In the Salesforce world, you have to configure your agents, you have to configure your prompts. Sometimes you have to configure flows and kind of embed all of these things together. One, it takes time. Two, it takes knowledge. And so what ends up happening is we get these personnel bottlenecks, right? Where only kind of the lowest common denominator use cases across your companies actually get productized and built out by your admins and your IT teams. Workbench is going to help solve that. It's going to help make AI as approachable and as easy and as fun as using ChatGPT, while also keeping it safe inside of the walled garden of your actual internal tool set. And finally, I think there's two other things that we've heard a lot from customers. One, in current AI tools today, there's not a lot of transparency, right? Once you hand something off to the LLM, it's hard to trace what happened. Agent executions are kind of black boxes. LLMs themselves, we don't really know what the reasoning is behind when they come back with a certain answer. You just have to hope that they're correct. Having the ability to look inside of that black box, understand more about the metadata of each execution is really important, and Workbench solves that as well. So let's dive in. This is AI Workbench. Coming in the next couple of months, but really what we were solving for when we built this is we wanted the simplicity and the approachability of a spreadsheet combined with the power of AI, right? People use spreadsheets in a lot of different ways today. And depending on your level of sophistication, depending on how many formulas you know, you can get a lot out of them, right? But one thing that still doesn't really happen is they're not connected to LLMs. Well, Workbench is different. It has the approachability, the familiarity, the intuitiveness of a spreadsheet surface, but it's easy. There's AI artifacts that are essentially embedded, and that allows us to have a much more powerful experience. So high level, how does Workbench work? Well, it starts by bringing in data, and there's a number of different ways that you can bring in data into Workbench. Just like a normal spreadsheet, you could type data into each cell. Alternatively, you could import data from CRM, right? There's a lot of records and objects that all of your teams have in CRM. You can bring those in so that you can start with a list of leads or a list of contacts or a list of cases, whatever. You could bring in data from Data Cloud. You could alternatively use have PDFs or files that you actually want to upload and throw in. But it starts with some amount of data, and then you have to do something with that data, right? And in this world, we've got traditional operations like Salesforce expression language and the ability to actually create mathematical or comparisons inside of Workbench. But more importantly, we have the ability to leverage AI artifacts, so prompts and agents. So any of the agents that you've actually configured on your Salesforce platform, you can now take the data that you've imported into Workbench and feed those into either prompts or agents that will then be grounded on that data in the sheet, and then you can monitor the executions in real time. Finally, once those are done, you can look at the results, you can inspect them, you can look at the associated metadata with each of the executions, you can share the results with your team, download this as a CSV, whatever you need to do. So in terms of use cases, we think that this is really useful for a few different personas and reasons. The first is, going back to kind of that ChatGPT example, this is an accessible AI playground that enables your NCRM users, your sales reps, your service folks, your marketers to get work done faster, to do CRM enrichment, to drive productivity. They can import their own CRM records. They can use prompts to analyze them, do research on them, whatever. And then they can update CRM in bulk really quickly from the spreadsheet. Before I do a demo, just also one more. So the other thing that's really powerful is it enables your data teams, your data analysts, your business insights teams to glean insights from unstructured data really, really fast, right? No more queries, no more code. All they have to do is they can bring in files, they can load in unstructured data, and again, use a prompt in line to perform some analysis, some data classification, whatever they want to do on that data set for then, that then they can share out with other folks. So now that we have that context, let's just jump into product and see exactly how this works. So here I am. I'm just inside Workbench is a new app inside of your Lightning experience. It's accessible through the app launcher. And when I'm in here, I can just create a new workbook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to create a new workbook called, let's just say, TDX Leads Research. I'm going to spin that up. It's going to pop me into Workbench, and I've got a blank spreadsheet. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring in some leads. So I'm going to go leads, and I've got the ability to search for any of my Salesforce objects in here, but here's some leads. And once I've kind of selected the object, all of the metadata about that object is available, and I can figure out what data I want to bring into the sheet. In this case, I think everything's useful, so let's just grab it, throw it all over, include it. Just for the sake of the demo, I'm just going to limit this to 20 records, and I'm going to say I only want to bring in the leads that I'm actively nurturing right now. So I'm going to go status is nurturing. I'm going to hit save, and right away, I'm going to bring in those leads. So these are leads that are active in my org, and the thing that you can do is with any type of higher level object or like JSON payload in Workbench, you can always expand it and look at some of the attributes associated with it. So with a lead, I can actually click on it, and I get this thing we're calling the JSON Explorer, which actually allows you to look at all of the metadata associated with that lead. So that's all the fields and the associated values that that lead has. So in this case, it's like, oh, okay, great. I'm going to actually, I want to do some work based off of the industry of the lead. So I'm going to just add this to my worksheet in one click. And in one click, I've got that information in the sheet. Now, here's where the cool part happens. So what we saw first was I went and I actually imported data using the object column. But now I can do some work on that data. So I'm going to go to the AI column. And in here, I'm going to say, well, maybe I want to see for each of these leads, I want to prioritize them. And so the way that I prioritize them is I want to see where the biggest market opportunity is. So maybe I'll say I want to calculate the TAM. So I'm going to call this TAM. I'm going to select my model. You can select any of the models that we have available on our platform. And I'm just going to say, let's say I'm a sales rep at Salesforce, so I'm working in CRM. So it's estimate the opportunity size of CRM in, and now I can do a reference to data in the sheet. Select industry. And this is just me creating a dynamic prompt. And then I can just hit save and run. And now what Workbench is going to do is it's going to call it LLM. It's going to, for each row, it's going to treat that as its own execution, and it's going to go off and it's going to go find a bunch of answers. So now I've got a bunch of data here, right? I didn't have to actually go and do this one-off, right? And that happens really, really quickly. So that's cool, but let's go even further. Let's see what else we can do. So in this case, maybe I want to look at competitors. And I want to say, you know, identify any vertical specific CRM competitors. Or let's say any vertical specific CRMs for, again, let's use the industry. And we'll say if pricing info is available, include it. Don't include any info about Salesforce products. Again, save and run. And same thing, it's going to go off, it's going to take the column 2 data, and it's going to see basically like, hey, what vertical specific CRMs exist in each of these industries. And while that's happening, right, what I can also do is, instead of just doing research on these leads, which is great, I don't want to just leave this stuff in the sheet. So as we can see here, right, as this data comes back, we're seeing things like, all right, for the entertainment industry, we've got this CRM called FilmTrack. You've got NetSuite for electronics, et cetera. So a lot of the research that I would have to do in terms of preparing for meetings is happening really, really quickly. And now I don't want to leave it here, so I'm just going to say, great, take all my leads, go here, take the competitor info, and dump it in the notes object of my leads. Hit save. All of those records are updated that fast, right? So now, if I'm actually in a lead object, right, you can see right here that this is a lead, there's no notes, just to verify that this was done properly. I can reload it, go to my details, and all of those industry-specific CRM competitors are now in the notes field. So that's just an example of, as a sales rep, how I can do research on my data really fast. Now, that's great, but let's look at another example. So I'm going to jump back in, I'm going to spin up a new workbook. This time I'm going to call it like voice call analysis. Jump in. Same thing, I'm going to import some voice calls. Take all the fields, dump them in, start to bring those voice calls in. And an example of this is, hey, I might have a service agent that is interacting with a bunch of customers over time. I might have salespeople that are actually recording their calls. I'm going to have a lot of call transcripts that are relatively long in nature with these individuals, and I want to mine them for analysis or for insights, right? So again, just like I could with the leads, I can open this, I can see the transcript right here in line, and I can just add it to the sheet. So now I've got the actual text representation of the data that I had, but I don't want to read through all of these for all of the records. So instead, I'm just going to use another AI column, and I'm going to say, hey, let's say, in this case, I think it's the scenario is we are a car dealership and we're trying to sell vehicles to different folks. So in this case, I'm going to say interested car type, and I'll say analyze, same thing, call transcript, and identify the type of car the customer is interested in. Classify it as either large SUV, mid-size SUV, sedan, or sports car. And instead of just returning text, you know, this is a lot of data here. Maybe I want something that has a little bit more of a visual hierarchy to it. I'm going to add a single select column, which now allows me to go in and put in different options. So I can go large SUV, mid-size SUV, sedan, sports car. Now I can hit save, right? And so this is going to go off and run. And it's going to look at each of those transcripts. It's going to try and figure out what was the customer asking about, and then what are the available options that I have, and how do I classify this, right? And so you can see that, okay, great. Like now I know exactly what general type of car this person's looking for. I can either route this to a specific salesperson who has an expertise in that area, or I can just use this and share it as a report potentially with my dealership team so that we have inventory stocked, right? Just like a spreadsheet, I can always pivot these so that it's sorted, and so that way you can kind of group things that have similar values. So two quick examples on how we can use Workbench to, again, like generate really quick business insights from unstructured data, as well as like help with employee productivity. The final use case here is really around AI testing. So I don't know if any of you have seen it, but we launched a product earlier this year called Agent Testing Center. It's the first no-code experience for actually being able to test agents end-to-end. Workbench is the V2 of that. So in Workbench, you're going to have all of the power that you would have in Testing Center plus more, right? Inside, because we're now moving away from a read-only view to Workbench, you'll be able to conduct multi-turn tests, you'll be able to define your own custom evaluations, and you'll also be able to look at the full execution metadata of each agent run. So let's take a look at how this might look. So this one, let's say that we're in the agent builder. We've done some configuration of our agent. We've put a new agent and or a new topic and action together, and we've doing some testing in the builder, right? And the builder is a great place to just get high-level confidence that the instructions are generally working as expected, but the reality is testing it 3 times in the builder is not good enough to actually be able to deploy this to your customers. So once you have a general idea that this is working, the next thing that you can do is you can start a batch test, right? And the batch test, you can name it, you can decide what agent that you actually want to invoke, the version of the agent, and some really cool things is that you can actually preserve all of that context from the agent builder into Workbench. So you don't have to redefine it. So we're talking about things like page context. If you had already had 2 turns of a conversation and you want to start from the middle, you can have that all loaded into Workbench so that it's ready to go. So if I hit continue, now the final thing to do is decide how are we going to create these test cases, right? Do I want to do it manually? That's an option. If you have existing data that you want to use, or if it's in a CSV file, throw it in, we can use that. But in Workbench, because we have the ability to generate stuff with prompts, we can also look at the metadata of the agents and the topics and the actions and create this stuff dynamically for you so that we can give you our best guess at what valid test cases and results should be across a myriad of scenarios to help pressure test. So everything's looking good. I'm going to hit continue. I can have some out-of-the-box evaluations if I want, but then I'm going to generate, right? And now all of a sudden, inside of Workbench, we're generating utterances for each of the utterances, which is just basically a turn from a user. We have associated expected topics, expected actions, expected outcomes that we've generated on your behalf. And then, just like we could with the lead objects, with the voice call objects, this is the agent column where the agent has now referenced the utterance, taken another turn, and returned some output. And just like we could with those other objects, we can always click into it and look at all of the associated metadata of that agent execution. So if for some reason a test case fails, right, you can look at that one and say, hey, did it have the right user context? Did it have the right page context? What did it think the input variable was? What was the intent that was diagnosed? All of those things are now available kind of at your fingertips inside of Workbench. And again, because this is a spreadsheet, it's not read-only. So if things look good and you want to do another turn, you can do that. All you have to do is just add another column, and we go in. We can use a prompt, that same AI prompt that we used in the other ones, to generate another turn of the conversation with a specific agent. Just like that. Awesome. So just a quick review, because I know we're kind of running out of time. So for Workbench, we've kind of got 3 key personas and different buckets of use cases. It's a great tool for your business analysts and your data ops teams. It's no-code business insights from unstructured data that they can do. For your admins, it's a really good way for those people that are building and configuring agents to actually go in, understand more about how to test those things at scale. And then for your line of business CRM users, your sales reps, your service folks, it's a safe and easy and fast AI playground. So in terms of the roadmap, we've got a bunch of stuff coming out. The pilot kicks off in April. And so we are taking signups for that. There will be a screen right here at the end if you're interested. That is going to be focused largely around the first 2 use cases that I showed, so the AI playground stuff. The AI testing stuff, that agent testing, we have Testing Center available today. So if you need to test your agents, use Testing Center. This summer, we will migrate everything from Testing Center over to Workbench. Anything that you do in Testing Center will be safe. It's just going to move to the new UI, so don't worry about that. And then later this year, we'll going to have some more functionality, making it easier to prototype workflows inside of Workbench as well. So thank you again for coming. If you're interested in joining the pilot, scan this QR code. I think there might be an ad that you might get in the middle because I use a third party to put that QR code up. Just skip it, but it'll take you to a Google form. We're just asking for a little bit of information around what you want to use Workbench for, when you'll be ready, and we will start reaching out to folks over the course of the next month to get you enrolled. But really, really excited to get this in all your hands and see how you use it. I'll leave that up in case anyone wants to do it. And I will be over here if anyone has any questions.